911.
Somebody broke into our house, last night, and, I don't know who it was, but they killed everybody here except for my sister, my brother, and me.
Okay, and what happened now?
There was a guy with a pistol or some kind of gun, and he came in and, shot my mother and my grandma. Those were the only ones here.
And you're there now?
And they also killed one of my grandma's dogs, so we still have 3 dogs left.
Did you just now come home?
No.
Were you there last night?
Yes, I was just afraid to call.
Stay on the line, okay? I'm going to take you to the police department.
Okay.
Kentucky State Police 911.
Yes, there was a break-in, that last night. I was afraid to call, and, they shot the only 2 people here, which was my grandma and my mom.
In what county?
Ronnieville, Kentucky.
In Ronnieville?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on right now?
Nothing. I was just afraid to call, so, last night.
Okay, and did the police come out last night?
No.
They didn't?
No.
And who was shot last night?
My mom and my, grandma.
Your mom and grandma?
Yes, and one of my, grandma's dogs. The only people here are me, my sister, and my brother.
How old is your sister and your brother?
My sister's like a few months old. My brother's only 4.
How old are you?
9.
Where were they taken last night? Did the police come?
No, they weren't taken. They were shot in my house.
Okay. And did they go to the doctor?
No.
Where are they at right now?
They're in my house. There's blood splattered everywhere.
Do you know who done this?
No.
You don't know? Have you been there all night by yourself?
Yes, with my brother and sister.
Okay, honey, you stay on the line, okay?
Okay.
Welcome to Dark True Crime.
911.
The Brent Burke case is a tragic and complex story involving a 911 call that led to a lengthy legal battle. On September 11th, 2007, Tracy Burke and her former mother-in-law, Karen Comer, were found shot to death in their home. Tracy's son, Matthew, who was only 9 years old at the time, made the harrowing 911 call to report the murders. He described hearing shots and seeing his grandmother and mother being murdered. Matthew Pete, Tracy's son from a previous marriage, witnessed a horror when he was only 9 that no child and no adult should ever have to see. He was there when his mother and grandmother were lived. I hear a couple of gunshots going through and some glass breaking and my grandma screaming that she's dying. I hear a couple more shots. And then I'm down on the couch, shocked. Never really thought this would be happening, Matthew told the authorities. His younger brother, Ian, who was 4, and his sister, Reagan, who was 2, were all in the house when the murders were committed. The investigation quickly focused on Tracy's estranged husband, Sergeant Brent Burke, as the primary suspect. Despite multiple civilian trials ending in mistrials, the case was eventually taken up by the military justice system. Homicide. Here's what we know about the case. Sergeant Brent Burke grew up a farm boy in Ursa, Illinois. He was the son of a soldier. When he could, he followed in his father's footsteps and joined the Army. That's when he met Tracy. He couldn't wait to bring her home to meet his family. Irene Burke was thrilled her son had found love. He brought her home in July, I think, of 2001. Irene Burke told Richard Schlesinger. She was very bubbly. She was a pleasure to be around. Tracy was a nurse with a young son, Matthew. She divorced Matthew's father to marry Brent Burke, who was a military policeman stationed at White Sands, New Mexico. Before long, Brent and Tracy would have 2 children together, a son, Ian, and a daughter, Reagan. He adored the kids, Irene Burke said of her son. Burke was described as an over-energetic, trying too hard type of an individual, described by a family member. Allegedly, Burke had a quick temper and was very possessive of Tracy. I didn't like Brent very much, not even in the beginning, she said. He was stalking her, and whenever she would go to work, he'd be in the parking lot when she'd get there. But according to Tracy's family, Sergeant Burke had been acting erratically, sometimes dangerously, even around the kids. Brent had picked Matthew, the eldest son who was the stepson, up over his head and slammed him down on the concrete floor, Tracy's sister-in-law explained. And we just remember how his body shook and the impact. And Matthew was sobbing, and Brent just started to say, oh, he's just, being dramatic. He's fine, don't give him any attention. The family says Matthew had the wind knocked out of him, but was not seriously hurt. No police report was filed, and Burke was never arrested. But Tracy's brother says that's when she started thinking about leaving Burke. Then, after 5 years of marriage, Sergeant Burke was sent to Afghanistan, where he was a prison guard at Bagram Air Force Base. He was gone for 13 months. With her husband away and her marriage getting shaky, Tracy, according to her family, assigned herself a mission: self-improvement. She lost 60 pounds, said David Wilburn. 60 pounds. And she is a good-looking girl. Burke's father, Stan Burke, was stunned by Tracy's transformation. Sergeant Burke returned from Afghanistan. He got a glimpse of his wife's new look. Allegedly, he was very jealous because of the attention his wife was getting from other guys. Tracy filed for divorce. That's when Sergeant Burke moved back to the barracks at Fort Campbell. Tracy and the kids moved in with Karen Comer 140 miles away in Rhineyville, Kentucky. He just couldn't understand why she would want a divorce, Irene Burke said, and she wasn't even willing to give it a try. Tracy's family says the divorce got ugly. The couple argued about money and the children, and Tracy became increasingly afraid of Burke. She said, I'm afraid he won't let me divorce him. He'll outlive me first, said Gracia Wilburn, Tracy's stepmom. Allegedly, Burke got off of work at approximately 10:30 in the evening. And from the testimony that his roommate told, he returned to the barracks at approximately 11:30. It was alleged he rode to Rhineyville and murdered Karen and Tracy Burke. When Tracy and Karen were murdered, police believe the murder weapon was a 9mm handgun. Tracy's father believes he knows where Brent Burke got the gun. Burke got it from him. Sergeant Burke then leaves and is not seen until 6:30 the following morning when his roommate returns from PT physical training. So, that whole period is unaccounted for. The filing of divorce happened in April, and she was murdered in September. It was alleged that he went to Rhineyville and murdered Karen and Tracy Burke. Sergeant Brent Burke earned his stripes at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home base for his division, the legendary 101st Airborne. Once under the command of former General David Petraeus, the soldiers of the 101st have seen more action than most soldiers in the U.S. Army. It is also where Sergeant Burke will learn if he will continue to serve in the Army, or if he will serve out his life in prison, because military prosecutors in the Army's Judge Advocate General's Corps, known as JAG, will court-martial Sergeant Brent Burke for double homicide. When Matthew called 911, he said he didn't know who the gunman was, but was certain he was wearing a camouflage jacket similar to one Sergeant Burke might wear. Kentucky State Police investigator Mark Gillingham interviewed Matthew days after the murders. Burke says the gun his father-in-law gave him was not a 9mm, it was a .38, and he gave that gun to Tracy. The police never found the weapon or any other physical evidence against Brent Burke, but they thought they had more than enough circumstantial evidence. On October 15, 2007, Sergeant Burke was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. In September 2009, 2 years after the crime, Burke was facing the death penalty. His case was finally getting ready for trial for the first time in a Kentucky state courtroom. During the trial, it was alleged that the police made serious mistakes. For shell casings from bullets like those that outlived both women were never collected by police even though they were in plain sight. They were picked up by the cleaning crew. No blood or DNA was ever found that could link Sergeant Burke to the crime. There was one other thing that would rock this case. Just as jury selection began, the defense learned someone else, a 14-year-old, had confessed to the murders. In a jail interview with WLKY, Burke said, "I only got 10 minutes, so I just want to make a statement. I'm an innocent man. I can no longer sit back and be railroaded and slandered. As of now, I've lost my children and my career. What more does the Commonwealth of Kentucky want from an innocent man?" Burke told police that about 1 a.m., he stopped to gas up his van. Then he said something that seemed strange, like 2 o'clock, 2:30. "I went truck shopping here cause, I couldn't sleep." He was looking for a 99 2000 truck. Truck shopping at 2 a.m.? As odd as it sounds, Burke's family says he doesn't like to be bothered by salesmen. "He told me personally he went truck shopping," said Stan Burke of his son. "Okay, he does that a lot?" Sergeant Burke says after truck shopping, he returned to Fort Campbell, fell asleep in his car because it was too hot in the barracks, and returned to his room at 6 a.m. But the jury will never hear any of Burke's statement because he was not read his rights. And prosecutors had a potentially huge problem with the witness, who says he was walking his dog near the murder scene that night. "I heard approximately 4 or 5 shots, I do not recall," the witness testified. "I heard a dog yelp. After the dog yelped, I didn't hear anything else." The trouble was, Gilmartin says it happened at 10 p.m. when Burke was still at Fort Campbell. After 4 trials and 4 years behind bars, there was now nothing stopping Sergeant Brent Burke from walking out of jail a free man, except the United States Army. Sergeant Brent Burke's stepson, Matthew Pete, was 12 when, after 4 mistrials, the charges against Burke for murdering Matthew's mother and grandmother were dropped. Matthew was scared. If they were going to drop charges and he was released, he could easily take a trip here, Matthew told 48 Hours. And come hurt me and my family," he replied. Why would he do that? Revenge? Payback? I don't know. It just felt like he could, Matthew replied. Burke was released from jail and sent back to Fort Campbell, but was not free to leave the base. And Burke did not know that the Kentucky State Police had been talking to the Army. When we realized that he was being released back to the military after the charges were dismissed against him, we looked into the charges, said JAG prosecutor. They found just what the civilian prosecutors did, a case for murder. Within 9 days, Burke was rearrested. Sergeant Brent Burke was interviewed again, this time on camera. Federal agent: "I don't think you went there that night with the intent to kill your wife. I don't think it was premeditated. I don't think that you went there. I think it was just something that happened." Sergeant Brent Burke: "You're right, I wasn't there." The Army had breathed new life into this case and began the court-martial of Sergeant Brent Burke. It was alleged that he had a troubled marriage and he did not want the divorce. He wanted to control the money and the decisions. He did not want her to move away, which she ultimately did, and he not have access to his children. The verdict was guilty. After 4 attempts, for failures in civilian courts, the Army wrapped up everything in just 8 days. Burke would serve life without parole. He would also be dishonorably discharged and stripped of his rank. Matthew Pete, who witnessed the tragic double murder of his mother and grandmother, was honored with Kentucky's first statewide 911 Hero Award. His bravery and detailed account of the incident played a crucial role in the conviction of his estranged stepfather, Brent Burke I. Despite the trauma he endured, Matthew's courage and composure during the 911 call were commendable, and his actions have been recognized as truly heroic. It's a poignant reminder of the strength and resilience that individuals can show in the face of unimaginable adversity. The case of Sergeant Brent Burke is a complex and tragic one that highlights several important lessons. The case underscores the differences between civilian and military justice systems. While civilian courts require unanimous jury verdicts, military courts-martial, do not one. This can lead to quicker resolutions, but also raises questions about fairness and justice. The case had a profound impact on the families involved, especially the children who witnessed the murders. It serves as a reminder of the long-lasting emotional and psychological effects such events can have on young witnesses. The case involved multiple trials, including civilian trials that resulted in mistrials and a military court-martial. This demonstrates the challenges of prosecuting complex cases with circumstantial evidence and the importance of perseverance in seeking justice. The case illustrates that double jeopardy does not apply between civilian and military courts. This means a person can be tried in both systems for the same crime without it being considered double jeopardy. The extensive media coverage of the case, including documentaries and news reports, shows the role of media in bringing attention to legal proceedings and influencing public opinion. The Brent Burke case is a poignant example of the complexities and challenges within the legal system, both civilian and military. It also highlights the importance of supporting victims and their families through such difficult times. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. Leave your comment below. Click that like button and the notification bell. We upload videos every week. Take care.